Hodgson put him on his back. Thurston, right foot kick, down the ground, into the in goal almost. Hodgson cuts it off. Hodgson taken by Norton. He took him late. Marshall skips away. Marshall's still going. Marshall's got Richards coming up outside. Now inside. Richards pursued. He pushes Johnson away.
Good evening, everybody. It is Tuesday, the 25th of February, 2025. You're back for another episode of the Tiger Town podcast with your hosts, Zach and Toby, brought to you, as always, by Best On Ground Digital, bestongrounddigital.com, the digital marketing agency that looks after the little guy, anything digital marketing related. They're your guys. How you going, mate?
Good, mate. Good. You?
Yeah, going all right. It feels nice sitting here in late February following a West Tigers win. Weird, but nice.
Yeah, again, it is only a trial, but it was there was a lot to take from that. So it does feel nice. It does raise the optimism, and I don't think it's false optimism at this point anymore either.
Okay, go on. Let's jump straight in. Elaborate on that.
There was a couple of obvious standouts within the game, but I think it was more the hunger and the determination was something that I haven't seen for a while consistently. You know, we had you think about the tries they scored, a lot of it was kind of individual brilliance from Iongi. So, you know, I think there's a lot to like about what we've seen so far. I think there's still things that need to be cleaned up. I think defensively we've still got some work to do a little bit, but the structures are there and people seem to be following them as well. So, yeah, again, watching that game, and I've watched that replay, I've watched those highlights, I reckon at least 6 or 7 times. It was really good to see, and, you know, we'll talk a little bit more about the team and individual performances later on. But just one real clear thing, it was really good to see that, you know, we obviously discussed it last week when we played the first trial against the Doggies that Galvin sort of tried to take control too much and didn't play his natural game in being that second receiver and really looking to find those gaps and those holes where he could. But when he had a dominant half, which Dewey was, he played his natural game and he looked electric. So,
very nice.
Yeah,
obviously last Friday, 30-18 at Leichhardt Oval down there in Sydney against the Parramatta Eels. The boys got up 5-3. Naden, Bird, Skelton, Hope and Fatape scoring for the Tigers. And as you were alluding to, Iongi earlier, Russell and Williams got across for their tries. Tigers led at halftime 18-12. And, mate, look, from a statistical point of view, we'll get into talking about individuals' performances and whatnot shortly. Can't argue with what you've said to open the show, but we largely dominated in terms of possession and territory and whatnot, particularly early in that game. A lull in the middle, and we sort of came roaring back.
Yeah, and that was, I think, at times a little frustrating with how much territory we did have that we couldn't convert it. But again, I will give a lot of credit to the Eels. I think they defended their goal line very, very well. They slid very well, and not surprising. That's kind of, you know, Jason Riles, when he's down in Melbourne, really learnt how to create a really strong defensive structure that he probably would have started instilling in the Parramatta Eels. So, but I think we probably should have scored a couple more tries, maybe even just one more from how much territory we have. But again, like I said, there's still a lot to like. So,
yeah, absolutely. So 57% of possession is what we finished with. Completion rate was pretty solid, mate. 82%, 38 of 46. I think we had the odd drop ball sort of as the game went on a little bit. All runs, 190 odd for Paras 140 odd. So you expect that when you have such a heavy weight of possession. But I think a lot of that is down to the game that we played. All run meters, we had them by 300. Keep going down the list. We got the better of the stats as you would expect. Tackle breaks were double. Line breaks 7-4. Play the ball speed, a little slower. Para had us there in that regard. I dare say, look, a fair bit of holding down. And obviously the the ruck infringements and the 6 agains and whatnot can attest to that. Obviously, a pretty hefty 6 again count. I think 9-4 from my recollection, even though we conceded and lost the penalties 8-5. So that might have been a bit of a contributing factor, mate, maybe to that slow play the ball. Tackle percentages and everything else all relatively even. So, look, was it just a case of more ball for the Tigers and, two relatively even sides, obviously both missing key players on the weekend? Or were we clearly the better side? Did we have a bit of contribution to the way that game sort of played out? What do you think?
Yeah, I think we were very clearly the better side. I think if you have a look at completion rates straight away, we handled the ball a lot better than they did. They gave up possession in some very cheap areas at times.
Yeah.
I think we had better structure than they did. Again, speak about those little moments of brilliance from Ayongi. The first one, he just beat Dewey for speed on the outside. And then Talon tried to strip the ball, it looked like, instead of just making the tackle.
Yeah, he'll learn from that. That was silly.
Yeah. And then the other one was an absolute perler of a cutout pass from him. I really think that the Panthers are going to rue that one, I think.
Oh, look, it was a good cutout pass as well, though. But watching it back, Charlie Staines just shouldn't have come in. We mentioned last week in the first trial they were sliding quite well. And if you watch the way that plays out, who's out that side? Is it they were playing then Dewey, Toa, and then Staines. So Toa actually gets to the man quite easily. And they're a decent way out from the line. I think they were 10 plus metres out from the line. So there was no sweep required. Had Charlie stayed on his man, or at least closer to his man, it would have been fine. So great ball, yes, and probably made that off the decision of Charlie to jam in that split-second moment. But pretty disappointing effort there from Staines in jamming in and breaking that pattern they had out wide, because the edges, I think, have shown already just in what we've seen thus far, and I know they won't necessarily line up that way. I've just kicked my toe. I'm trying to keep a straight face. Oh, my goodness me. Anyway, the sliding's been impressive from my liking. What do you think in that regard, just to go off on a topic quickly?
Yeah, I think so. I think there seems to be a lot more communication out there than previous. I think, and that comes down to, I guess, obviously having a few more senior players in the team, but also another year under the belt for a lot of our juniors. Just getting that confidence back, not back, but building on that confidence so that they can, trust each other is a big one too. I think that's a huge one when it comes to that sliding defense, is trusting the man on the inside. So yeah, it's definitely improved, and it was something that we talked about last year. Was we could see the structures there. It was just one or two people weren't playing to that, and it was getting frustrating. And unfortunately, a lot of that time when he was on the field was Dewey, not playing to the structure, not sliding when he needed to, being lazy at times. But he defended well on the weekend. So
yeah, Toa specifically.
No, Dewey. Stop looking at your phone and pay attention.
No, I'm trying to set something up for the next segment. We're getting there in the minute, but a bit distracted. Sorry, Dewey. Yeah, he did. Mentioned Toa as well, because there's a high chance. It seems as though there's a high chance of those two possibly lining up in the centres, mate. So
yeah, exactly.
That is pleasing to see. I will say on Dewey specifically, and I know we'll get to these guys individually a little bit later. Great game, obviously offensively. Did some good things defensively too. There's still little moments where he's turn and chase, and his effort on effort just seems lacking to me. And I don't know if that's just inbuilt or and he's unable to fix it. But a couple of moments where there was a half chance or something slipped by him in defence, or a ball went past, he did turn in a slow jog, and we're not seeing a whole lot of desperation in a couple of those little moments. Just only small things. But
do you think that might have to do, because a turn and chase like that, you obviously have a lot of off the line speed, and puts a lot of pressure on your knee. Do you think maybe it's psychological as well?
Mate, look, from a physiological standpoint, in terms of where he's come back to, I'm going to say no.
Okay.
Not to that degree. You know, you're going to lose fractions of a second in your turn and go for sure. But this is not that. There seems
I'm not saying physiologically. I'm saying psychologically. He's not pushing as hard because he's concerned that he might snap it again or something.
Oh, look, possibly, but I think the psychological demons come into play before return to play is really given that tick of approval. And I know they'll still be there, yeah, for sure. But these are in situations where there's no threat to the knee. It's more looking for that urgency, I guess. And, you know, we've spoken about that quite a lot. There's a number of metrics around how you can observe urgency in a player. And I think turn and chase when a mistake is made, or that concept of just chasing in case, you know what I mean? I'm still seeing the odd little moment where I see others around him do it, and I'm seeing him sort of, you know, mosey on back. I'm being critical, and we'll move on from it now. But
that's what we're here for. Yeah. We're here to be critical.
Positively critical, maybe.
Yeah, it's about, you know, taking everything, because we know that Dewey listens to this show religiously. It's just taking that feedback on board. That's all it is.
Brent Naden, mate, pretty unfortunate run he's had, hasn't he? So dislocated left kneecap. Fortunate news, no ligament damage. There appears to be no collateral ligament damage either. No issues with instability around the knee. So he's been given a prognosis of 6 to 8 weeks. Time of injury being last week, 3 weeks till game 1 or thereabouts. So there's
around 5.
There's a chance, the first month of footy. So, look, to be honest, that's probably best case scenario given the way it looked on the weekend. Pretty unfortunate news for Brent, but I guess there's a silver lining.
Yeah, and he was looking strong. He was looking good. I think if that hadn't have happened, you know, we'll talk a little bit more about Olam as well, but if that hadn't have happened, I think he'd definitely be a starting centre. If he had continued playing the way he was. That try epitomised how he's improved. That was extreme desperation. He never gave up on it. And he was just, like, you think about, if you watch that try again, how he had to sort of squeeze between defenders. He could have just very easily let them ground. He's like, no, I'm going to try to put this ball down. And that's, you know, that's a complete attitude thing. And I would never say that Naden's attitude towards playing has been poor. It's his decision making at times, and his, I guess, poor decisions that he makes in terms of discipline has been what's let him down. But he was definitely going to be my first pick if he had stayed healthy.
It wasn't only that. There was other little moments where he was playing those 1%ers. The exact opposite thing I was critical of Dewey of a moment ago, and I want to reiterate that I think Dewey had a great game, and we'll positively in a sec. It was just off what you were talking about with his defence earlier. But, you know, there was the moment earlier in the game where one of the Parramatta players got the ball, maybe fourth tackle in our end, and Naden chased and hit him from behind, came over with the arm and forced an error early in the game.
That's right, yeah.
Simply chasing right in field when he didn't need to. He noticed that there was a bit of maybe, you know, lack of intensity and switch off attitude from whoever the ball carrier was, and he made that little I guess low percentage play, but it came off. So that's all effort stuff, and he's been looking the goods, you know, as you mentioned last week too. You talked about the All-Stars, and he's carried it into this week. So, but mate, fingers crossed that he can have a quick bounce back from that injury. They look bad, but they can be okay, and fingers crossed it's going to be.
You see a lot of the times when someone dislocates their kneecap, they just try to hit it and put it back in place on the field.
Yeah, that's more, I guess, people that have done it a few times, so that does become a bit lax. You can sort of do that, but the thought of doing that's not really something that
for somebody that's dislocated both his shoulders multiple times, I can't think of doing a kneecap.
Yes, you certainly have. Yeah, anyway, best of luck or Godspeed, Nato, on your recovery, and hopefully we see you back sooner rather than later. I think there is a fair bit of competition for that centre spot now, especially with the Justin Olam news, mate. So just this week, for those that aren't aware, there's obviously you wouldn't have seen Olam during the trials, and he had some knee clean-out surgery at the back end of last year due to return hopefully fully fit for this year. But recent reports are suggesting that medical retirement is a pretty heavy chance.
Yeah.
And I think this week is going to be the decision. So,
I think they're meeting tomorrow about it, is what I read.
yeah, so the back end of this week, it might be tomorrow, you might be right, that they're going to have a discussion whether or not that's something that he's considering. And if he does, the Tigers will then need to apply to the NRL for dispensation, which means that he could actually be removed from the salary cap. And the stipulation around that is that it must be deemed to be a new injury that has occurred during the length of the contract, not a chronic injury that they've taken on. Now, given the fact that it's the opposite knee to the one that had plagued him during the Storm and at the start of his time here with us, the club believes, from what I've read, that he's re-injured that mid-late last year. Not sorry, re-injured, but he is injured the other knee. And so they're presenting it. It's early days, it seems to be, as quite possibly a new injury. And so that seems as though it might be something that they pursue, and rightly so. I mean, you would have to. Mate,
absolutely.
Putting aside the fact that we haven't got another player that the Tigers haven't got a lot of output out of, unfortunately, even though it seems they were moving past that era. The thought of getting Olam off the books, a fully fit and firing Olam would be lovely to have. But, if we can get him off the books, we're going to have a little bit of coin off the back of the likely Clemmer transfer that we're still waiting on as well. So, I mean, I think the answer is pretty obvious, but where are we looking?
I'm going for Selwyn Cobbo. They've re-signed Stags. They don't have the salary cap for him. So I'm going Selwyn Cobbo for that centre position. What about you?
Could I just ask on that? Selwyn, young bloke, Sherberg, pretty close, tight-knit community up there. He's you're right.
Sorry.
He's he's had his issues in the past, I guess, mentally and whatnot, and he had to take a little bit of time off footy in the past. Would that concern you moving down to a city like Sydney to take up what I assume would be a pretty decent money contract offer with the Tigers?
2 years ago, yeah, but I feel like he's matured a fair bit since then. I don't think he'll go. I think there's a high likelihood that he'll either re-sign for less than he can't really re-sign for too much less than his market value, but or go to the Dolphins, stay somewhere in Queensland, or go to the Titans. He'll most likely stay there, but I wouldn't be too concerned now. You think about, there's a lot of people that start their rugby league journey a bit too young, and they don't sort of have the right mind frame to fit. Like, straight away, I think of Jamie Lyon. Straight away. He started with the Eels, didn't really sit well with him, so he took a year off, went and played Super League for a year, came back, and was probably one of the best centres for almost 10 years. So, yeah, I think I'd be comfortable with it. You?
I'd have reservations about Cobbo.
Yep.
I can't disagree with what you've said. I think at this stage, this is the opportunity for us to go bang, bang in terms of a big centre and a big edge. Now, we're obviously going to be at the discretion of what comes onto the market, and that's an issue. I know that, in the next year or so, there's not a great deal out there. We can go through the list, but that's a discussion, I guess, for another podcast. But it's more when we're seeing people held on the pine or becoming disgruntled, people falling down the pecking order at their respective clubs, and we start to see a bit of restlessness early in the season. I think that's probably our best opportunity. What that looks like at the moment, I'm not particularly sure. But I think, look, we've already got some money. If likely the Clemmer move happens, we're going to have more. And then if we can manage to nail Olam on this medical retirement and the dispensation that goes with it, I think we can really go top shelf. It's just a matter of what's going to be available, I guess.
What's available, yeah.
Yeah, which is an issue. Because, we've got young Makasini there who's 17 years of age, and he's the heir apparent for one of those centre positions, likely on the left there, from memory. But he, it's hard to say with young talents like that, do you throw them in early? Like you were talking about with likes of a Cobbo. Some of them excel, some of them don't. But he'll be there in 3-4 years at least. That's a pretty safe bet, you would think, if he continues on his current trajectory. It's who do we find to pair well there? And second row is obviously the other issue, mate, as well.
Yeah, it is. And I'm just going through a list here now, and look, not a lot of quality centers are off contract this year or next.
No.
Next year you're looking at, I'm looking at Will Penasini. You got Farnworth, but there's no chance he's leaving Queensland.
Well, same with Penasini. Penasini's quality in my eyes, but he's stuck at Para. He'll be at Para for a while. They got the younger Penasini coming through there as well. I think there's a couple of them, a couple of others. Sorry, but is it Richard? I think Penasini coming through.
You'd know better than I would. Yeah, and look, there's no one really off contract this year at all. So I don't know. It's a big call. It's a hard one to sort of figure out, because for that to happen, to sort of go bang bang, they need to be. It just needs to be a disgruntled player that doesn't want to be there. So there's reports of Spencer going in off contract or wanting to leave the Roosters just because he doesn't like it there, and that could potentially wiggle him out of that. But apart from that, there's no one on the list. So
no, and obviously, if you're chasing a centre and a second rower, a prop is probably the last thing on your mind, particularly when you've just transformed the front row rotation incredibly in the off season, as it is amazing as Spencer Leniu would be. Yeah. But he's not going anywhere. They'll sort that out.
But you did bring up something a few pods ago. When we were talking about Terrell May and being a family man. Wait to see what happens with Taylor, I guess.
Yeah, and that's the obvious one. But again, it's a tricky situation because there's some precariousness around that for obvious reasons. So we won't open that back up again. He's facing serious charges, and until that gets dealt with as it should do by the courts, it's hard. It is hard to make too much of a comment about it. Even if the charges are dropped or he's found not guilty and whatnot. Sure, I'm sure that will open the door for a conversation, and the NRL would have their say on how they would feel. I can't imagine there'd be too many roadblocks. I don't think he's been charged with anything yet, or I might be wrong, but sorry, convicted of anything yet. But yeah, I think that's a discussion that will be there if and when the chips fall that way, and if they don't, so be it. Probably, or certainly, I should say, not something that we would be banking on, that's for sure.
No. And probably the same can be said about the back row. No one's really stood up to kind of put their name up in those positions for a good while.
Yeah. Yeah, around the league, we're short in a few areas, and we go through cycles, don't we, where there's a lot of halves on the market at one time and a lot of decent props on the market or whatnot, but things happen. Like Richo says, sometimes the tree gets shaken and people like Terrell May fall out in the middle of November. So what a present that's been, and I can't wait to talk about his performance in a moment. But before we do, mate, I think it's time. I think the listeners are ready for another episode of Toby's Pathways Roundup, mate. What do you think?
Mate, we need. Yeah, no, I like that. I was about to say, is there a bit of a theme song to this? And hopefully all the listeners can hear that, because I think that's something we're going to be using from now on, because that's quality, and I appreciate that. So
all this time, mate, you criticise me because I'm on my phone. I'm just trying to set up your segment, and without much further ado, Toby's Pathway Roundup.
So again, just going through how we went over the weekend in terms of the scoreline in our youth, who stood up, and I guess potentially who's knocking on the door for a debut this year. So when we look at the SG Ball, we'll start with the Magpies, who absolutely thrashed the Dragons 50-4. And this came from 4 tries. Now you're better at pronouncing a lot of these Pacifica names than me, so I'll probably get this wrong. But from our winger, Saint Fatume. Yes, no.
Saint Fuatamea.
Fuatamea.
I think it's Fuatamea. There was an Iverson Fuatamea and a Compton Fuatamea as well. Fuatamea, I think it is.
Cool. So there we go. Got that one wrong.
I probably have as well, but that's how I've always pronounced it. I hope that's wrong. Sorry, boys, if I've gotten it wrong.
If there's, especially the boys over at Faithful, if they know how to say it well, let us know. If there's any of our listeners that know how to pronounce it properly, let us know, and I'll try to get better. And then obviously we got a try from Makasini. Makasini kicked 5 from 10, so a bit of an off night. So it could have been a lot more. Could have been a lot more in terms of 60-4. But that's pretty promising. I think that's their first win of the year as well. I think, yeah. Yep. We move on to the Balmain Tigers, who remain undefeated in the SG Ball. They beat the Panthers 26-12. Again, we talk a fair bit. We talked a little bit about him when he played in the first trial in terms of Tanis, but apparently Tanis had an absolute blinder. So good to see how he develops a little bit further. In the Tasha Gale Cup, obviously the under-19s girls, we went down to the Knights 28-4. That was up in Cessnock. In the under-18s Laurie Daly Cup, we went down to the Dragons over in Camden. In the Harold Mats, Western Suburbs went down to the Roosters 30-12. That was at Woy Woy. Hey, over in Woy Woy. And then another team that seems to be undefeated is the Harold Mats Balmain Tigers, who beat the Bears 16-14. So
good little comeback in that one, I think, from memory against the Bears. There? I think so. I think I was reading that. We came back, but I may be wrong. Good, close win.
But yeah, there's another Lawrence coming through the grades. Did you see that?
No.
Ben Lawrence.
Okay.
Might be another favourite for you, mate.
Possibly, mate. No relation, I'm assuming.
Nah, it wouldn't be.
Relatively common last name.
We know that Chrissy's got a sister, Emma, but I don't think he has a brother that's maybe 20 years younger than him.
So a bit of mixed results there, obviously, but good to see the West's SG Ball get up and Balmain Mats and Ball both continue their winning starts to the year. So strong effort from Balmain, particularly given how much they struggled in last season to turn it around with their squad. So good effort there from the Balmain fellas.
It's good to see that they're kind of on the trajectory that we want them to be. So,
and importantly, the competition numbers, the junior base, the quality of all those systems grows every day that it's down there, and they're pouring more money into it. So the stronger that those foundations get, mate, it's going to feed through to that NRL side. Eventually, it's on the way there now. Obviously, we're starting to see the fruits of that labour, and as long as we keep those pipelines open, it's going to be a really great boon for the club moving forward, hopefully forever moving forward.
Absolutely. I'm just looking here now. I think we've got a trial coming up. We had a trial last week for the New South Wales Cup. So, yeah, hopefully, I think it's coming up. So, yeah. Having a look now at the team list there, no one that's really kind of not surprising. Ruben Porter's back in. Matamil was locking the scrum. No one really surprising there. So,
yeah. Very good. Mate, let's jump into talking individuals in the game against the Eels. And we'll start with Heath Mason at fullback. What did you make of Heath's game?
I think it's going from strength to strength, if I'm honest. I think his positioning was really good. I think his but his off the line in terms of offense is electric. I don't think it's quite bullet pace, but he was finding those little gaps in the defense and just bang, straight through it, or at least bending the line every time. So I think he's an extremely serviceable backup and may be named in round 1, depending on what I'm reading. So,
yeah, there is a chance, from what we've heard, that Buller's shoulder took a bit of a knock against Sam Weller at training a couple of weeks back. Obviously, he's been on limited contact duties over the off-season, having that shoulder surgery. and might have set him back a little bit. I think he's touch and go from what we've read at this stage for round one. So obviously Heath's stepping up there, ready to show that he can fill Dream's boots in his absence.
Yep. Absolutely.
Fingers crossed we can have Buller ready to go, but you don't want him underdone. It's a long season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially with round one.
Yeah, I got to agree with you, and I like what Heath's bringing. Small guy, short in stature as he is, he's playing above his weight, and in contact, I'm looking a little more confident with him. He's not getting ragdolled as much. He's good off that right boot. I tell you, when he plants it in the ground and moves, he's quick.
Yeah,
he's quick. He's quick off the mark. And one thing I think, if he can start to work out his spacing on those backline swings and when and where to straighten the attack when he does chime in, I think that he's going to be even more of a threat around that ball. And I've got no doubt that the likes of Luai and Galvin and more time playing with them will only help that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, as I mentioned before, I think he's an extremely serviceable backup. And, it's fantastic to have that kind of competition that we have.
Yeah.
Because, we know what Buller can do, but we also know that there's times when, there's parts of Buller's game that need to improve. And it seems to be the same thing in terms of Mason. Mason needs to improve on those parts as well. And that's, parts of his attack. But, very happy to have him there.
And they're both young fullbacks in the infancy of their careers as well. So they are both developing. Jareem's a little bit in front, obviously, and we've seen a bit more footy of him, and we know what he can do. He's the incumbent, clearly. His current ceiling is higher, or where he's at is higher. But they're both learning together, to your point, and healthy rivalry is always a good thing. Hopefully we can keep them in place for quite a while as a bit of a 1-2 punch when needed. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it'd be nice, but quality fullbacks sometimes are few and far between, so it'd be hard.
They are, yeah. But local boy Heath, and hopefully he sticks around with the club that he's come through with for a while.
He ran for 168 metres, so.
There you go. No surprises there. Mate, Jarrell Skelton, he has walked himself into a jersey for mine. If there was ever in doubt, what an absolute weapon of a player this bloke is. Exactly what we've been missing since about 2012.
How was that shot? Oh. That would have hurt so much.
To his credit, it was Geimer, I think, wasn't he? Tough as an axe.
Yeah, he smiled and got up.
He got up. Good on him. I think he's the type that would put a few on himself, Charlie Geimer. But what a shot. But across the board, mate, he had a mistake in there. And his positioning was good. His backup was good. He was there for a couple of opportunities following through with the play. So he's able to sniff out a try. He's hard. He runs into contact. He hits like a truck. He defended, again, reasonably well out that side, especially when his centre pair had to change mid-game. I know he would have trained with Dewey at centre at certain points if Dewey had trained on the left. But, mate, could not be more impressed. And we sort of knew this, but it's good to see it start to it's good to actually see it in a Tigers jersey, trial form as it may be, and hopefully that's the player that we've managed to get from the Dogs.
Yeah, agree. And I think I was looking at it the other day. In every single game he's played, in terms of, let's put trial in there as well, and first grade, he has not averaged less than 150 metres, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, he's a beast.
That's ridiculous.
Yep, he's a beast, mate. Stoked to have him, and fingers crossed we've got a good one there. Stafford Toa, limited opportunities with the ball, though he did look sharp, that little break that he made. Outside of that, we mentioned it earlier, defensively, I'm looking to be impressed and see improvement, and I'm seeing improvement defensively. I really am.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think we've always, well, not always, we saw that he was gradually improving a couple of years ago. When he first came to the club, he had some very glaring weaknesses. Also didn't help the fact that he was on Noffa's side, and Noffa's was, well, you know what he was like defensively.
Sorry, who?
So, some bloke that used to play for us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And he's definitely seems to have corrected quite a few of them. I think he slid well. He jammed when he needed to jam. I think he shut down one or two plays. And I think he really just, I think he'll probably be the first pick in terms of centre. I think he's, obviously we don't have limited options. We have, we obviously have Fatape, we have Dewey. Naden's
Folletti.
only gone. Folletti. Naden's only gone until round 5 maybe.
I still am here, folks. So I'm just readjusting my camera at the moment, so I am still here. Mate, Macassini, the other one too.
Macassini.
Later in the year, obviously, once he turns 18, a likely chance to maybe get a run.
Yeah. So, but I think he will be there round 1. And I wouldn't say he's played himself into it. I wouldn't say he had an absolute, nothing like Jarrell Skelton, who is a must. But I think he has definitely solidified just for now that he will be there round 1. And then I hope he goes from strength to strength. Yeah. I hope he just continues to improve because, I got a soft spot for Top. So,
yeah, I very much like him. I very much like him as a player, definitely, and I want to see him do well. He seems like a regular down to earth, sort of player. He seems humble when he's spoken to and interviewed, and quietly spoken. And I don't see a whole lot of nonsense in his game, and they're the types of players that I'm generally drawn to. And we've seen what he can do with the ball, as we've said a couple of times. Though, we all think back to that match against the Cows. But defensively, if he can strike up a bit of a partnership there, it might be just what we need on that edge, just to improve his 25% or so. That's all we need.
Yep. No, I agree.
All right, mate. Sorry, I am fixing it up. I'll be back in 2 seconds.
I'm sure you are.
I'm sure you are too.
Yeah.
So, Charlie Staines.
We spoke about Naden?
Oh, we've spoken about Naden. Did you anything you want to add to that?
Get better. Get not better. Recover quicker. I want you back. So do everything you have to make your rehab go the way it should go. So that would please me greatly because I will reiterate. I feel like he's going to be something that he's going to be a mainstay if he continues the attitude that he has.
Yep. I agree. And obviously with the Olam news that we're talking about, which seems pretty likely at this stage, at least for this year, before we can go out and hopefully add to those centre stocks, we're going to need these guys to be readily available as well. So it's good to see that we're seeing some improvement out of these guys, albeit Naden sitting on the sidelines for a bit there.
Yep.
Staines. Didn't see much of him for mine. I think we know what he offers at this point. I think, I mentioned earlier he jammed in when I don't think he probably should have. And I think it's pretty safe to say he is a couple down the pecking order, I think, at this stage. I may be wrong there, but that's my suspicion. But look, to be honest, not a bad backup to have when you need to call on a replacement winger. We're thinking, I'm going to speak for you, Skelton and Taruva, I think are our starting wingers.
Yep.
We've then got Leilani, who suffered a head knock at training, so I think he's out for a few weeks as a precautionary measure. Staines and Leilani, provided Luke's had a decent off-season and he's another 6 months older and wiser, I'm probably leaning towards Luke as my first drop.
Yeah, I don't know. I saw a fair bit in terms of improvement needed from Luke for him to be, I guess, the solidified backup. I know what I get from Staines, and he has a couple of poor reads every once in a while, but generally he's pretty solid in defence, from what I believe anyway. And he does run hard, and we did see that on the weekend in terms of his returns.
Yeah, he puts in, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think for now I'll probably lean actually more towards Staines as the first choice backup, or maybe Lob. Hey,
stop it.
I did find out back to our question. Back to
April Fool's Day is still 5 weeks away, mate. You're jumping the gun.
But we talked about Declan Casey a couple of weeks ago. He's actually at Souths. Found that out.
Yes, yeah. Read that on the weekend too. I forgot to mention it to you. Okay, let's get to some fun ones because the Tigers played well. There was a lot of standouts, and we're about to go through a couple of players that were particularly impressive for their own types of reasons. Mate, I'll let you have Lachlan Galvin.
Yeah, I mentioned at the start of the pod that it looked like he kind of understood his assignment for this game. He didn't have to be the end-all to be-all, didn't have to try to win the game or take control every chance he got. He got the chance to play his natural game and use his natural ability, and that showed. greatly. He chimed in when he needed to chime in. He made 9 times out of 10 made the right decision. There was a couple of times when he kicked when he probably should have passed, but we all know that he's got that deft touch with a kick anyway, so there was a chance they could come off anyway. So, yeah, I think that's kind of what impressed me more than, I guess, any pass or any kick or anything he did in defense was the maturity to evolve, to see that potentially that was a weakness, not a weakness, but not the right game plan to have in terms of trying to own the game and take the game on when it's not your strength.
Do you think having Dewey and a louder voice there as his offsider contributed to that?
Absolutely. And I think that's kind of...
Yep.
I think Latu in game 1, and I'll talk about Latu. We'll talk about Latu later on. But I think having Latu in game 1, Galvin kind of definitely owned that field. And Latu was a little bit sort of quieter. But when you got Dewey, we know what Dewey does. Dewey is screaming at people on the field consistently. Right or wrong, I will say that when Ayongi went through and Dewey missed and then Talon fell off, he looked directly at TDS. He looked directly at TDS and just... It's like a glare. Like, you did that. I'm like, yeah, but you missed the first one, mate.
Yeah, he got burnt first, which meant Talon had to get across and cover for him. Yeah, they both made it.
That frustrates me a little bit about Dewey is he needs to take a little bit more ownership for his mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the case as well in terms of having somebody, just back to Galvin for a sec, having someone dominant beside him helps to regulate his game. I dare say that the coaches would have spoken to him after that game. I've spoken to both of them, though, because they did play a bit of time together in the halves there in the second half once Naden went off, when we saw Latu come in. I'm assuming, it appeared to me, I think they might have roved and shared it a bit, but I think that primarily Latu played that first receiver into Lockie at second with Dewey at centres, at least defending at centres and maybe chiming in for the odd 5/8 role as well. But I didn't see this week what I saw last week between Latu and Galvin. So that tells me that there's some coaching that's happened between last week and this week, because obviously, they were the halves partners and they got a chance to do it again this week together, and it looked quite different.
It did.
Yeah, both with Latu taking a bit more of a step up, which I love to see. That kid is such a footballer.
Yeah. But what that also does is, what that also tells you is how smart those two kids are in terms of football brains.
Yeah.
Because you can coach them. You can say things like, okay, you did this. But if you don't listen and you don't register it, you just go back into your normal... you see it time and time again, especially with young footballers. They have their natural ability and it takes a while for them to become coachable. But for that to kind of flip within a week just shows how smart those two footballers are. So...
yeah, no, it's good. And the other side of the coin too is, I spoke last week about the entire side, it seemed, being in first or second gear. It seems as though this week they played with a bit more intensity, and that's what we called for, and that's what we got. And I think it bled through into Lachlan Galvin's game too. Everything he did had an extra half yard of pace about it, a little bit more conviction when he took the line on, and we saw him go through a couple of times. He hit the line at pace with speed. Every ball was thrown as a bullet. We weren't sort of just coasting into game 1. And so I think whether or not he noticed or the coaches noticed or whatever the case may be, I think we saw a little bit more intensity rise from him, and we saw that across the park in terms of how he played his game too. So it was a couple of areas that were impressive, but there's a couple to mention.
No, yeah, and it's funny, like you talk about that rise of intensity, it kind of correlates with somebody getting their first run in a Tigers jersey. So, yeah. I'm obviously talking about May here. So.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about Bird, because when Bird came on, he brought a lot of intensity, which was brilliant.
Told you I wanted to sign him, but I think a lot of it had to do with May starting, because he was yelling. I don't know if you watched him closely, but he was yelling on the field. He was telling people what to do or telling him where he's going to be and all that, and that communication. And yeah, we've been crying out for this for probably since Woodsy left.
So we'll talk about May in about 2 moments. We mentioned Dewey before. We spoke about a few bits and pieces around him. Anything else you want to add, mate? I think we know what we get with Adam Dewey, and I have just the same concerns in defence with him likely getting a centre spot to start the year as I've always had. I know what he can do with the ball. It's just
we know what we can do.
We've been waiting years to see. Yeah, we've been waiting years to see that defence improve. My only hope is that the structures look better defensively out wide this year, and I'm hoping that the structures will suit him better, and that will help us. But the way Yongi burned him on the weekend, I already had a big alarm in my head. That was too easy.
It was too easy.
Yeah,
and that's a real concern. Look, the only thing I will say, that 40-20, God, that looked good.
Yeah, great.
As soon as that came off the foot, I'm like that left-hand turn that it took, I was like, people can sit there and say it's a lucky bounce. I'm like, no way. He knew exactly what he was doing as soon as that left his foot.
I really like Adam Dewey, mate. I like how competitive he is. I like his build as a footballer. I think he's immensely talented, and he had a cracking game on the weekend, some awesome touches. Having him at centre, what it does do is it sends our versatility and our utility value within the squad, likely the starting squad and the extended 17, through the roof as a result of having he there, having Bird likely on the bench, particularly round one. We're going to have to play Latu because Hope is training trial, so isn't eligible. Appy's suspended, so Latu's there as well. The versatility in and around that squad is quite incrable, and having Dewey there
and
playing
Bird
halfback
as well.
I mentioned Bird, so Dewey, Bird, and Latu. Yeah. Yep.
Sorry, I was looking at my phone.
I'll let you make the joke, not me. Yeah, I didn't judge you though. That's the difference. But look, Dewey in the halves, Dewey at centre. I don't want to see Dewey ever at fullback, but he has played a bit of fullback, and if we need it, there's a cover there
in a pinch. Absolutely,
yeah, absolutely. So, and we got the likes of Heath Mason. Sorry, Heath. Sniffer around the squad too, who has a lot of utility value in and of himself. So, look, Dewey's probably going to take a centre spot to start round one. We've spoken ad nauseum about reservations in defence. I hope that those have been put to bed. I know that he's certainly got the capabilities to do it because with the ball as a footballer, he's a great footballer. He's a wonderful footballer. He just needs to realise that the thing holding him back, I think, from taking that next step is on the wrong side of the ball.
Yep. No, 100% agree.
Terrell May, mate.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah,
I love him.
Yeah.
And the thing is, he ran harder the longer. He reminded me of like Taumalolo, obviously not with the footwork or anything like that, but Taumalolo about 6 or 7 years ago, he would run harder the longer he played. His motor wouldn't, if anything, it was like it just flipped a gear every 10 minutes. Every 10 minutes, he went into another gear. That's I felt I saw with May.
It's just slowly
the longer
winds
the game
up.
Went, he was just building and building and never slowed. He had a couple, he had that one mistake, but honestly, you can forgive him for that.
Yeah. Yeah, quite incredible stats. He played the entire first half at prop, and he ran for over 100 metres in the first half alone, I think 110 or so.
Yep.
He came off pretty early in that second half, and so he only had 18 runs for 157 metres. And believe it or not,
do better, mate. Jesus,
less than our other starting prop, Pollet, who ran for 177 metres off 18 runs. Monsters up front. One thing really stood out for me was his want and desire to take multiple carries all throughout the game within a single set.
Yeah.
That is gigantic from a prop. Terrell May, compared to other players, he's not gargantuan. He doesn't stand out like a Nelson Asafa Solomona. He's a big boy and he weighs a lot and he's thick through the trunk particularly. But he's not a figure that you look at like Payne Haas, where he just looks like he's going to dominate physically. But to your point, mate, he's solid. He's pretty big. He's still a big boy, but he just goes and he goes and he goes and he goes and he doesn't let up. And in fact, he probably gets better over the course of the game. And when you've got a prop who can easily play the first half, probably play the whole game too, like he did for the Roosters last year, that one dynamic within your squad, regardless of his positive output, gives you a leg up when it comes to interchanges and advantages and who you can play on the bench and how you can get your rotations going and whatnot. It provides so many advantages. And then you throw in the fact that he has a high tackle percentage. He has a high workload. He wants to take multiple runs within the same set. He wants the football. It's just, holy hell. I can't believe in a little over a half of football, he has shown that much in one game. He was absolutely outstanding, mate. Outstanding.
I can't add anything to that. Nothing.
Incredible. I'm so excited to see what he can do. And I'll tell you what, if he's not somewhere near the Blues squad, I'll walk backwards from Brisbane to Leichhardt, like dead set.
The only reason he wouldn't be somewhere in the Blues squad
Don't
is
say it.
because Laurie Daly's a coach.
And he doesn't know anything about anything.
No.
Terrible
Balls
choice.
ass first into a shield.
Discussion for another day. All right, Talon Da Silva. I think we're going to talk about Terrell a fair bit this year. But
I think we are.
Talon Da Silva, TDS. Mate, I think that the obvious low-hanging fruit is going to be jumping on the missed tackle, which he obviously did. He didn't stand out. So as much as our starting props were solid and had a wonderful game, I don't think we really... look, it may be a case of a slow ruck from Para too, but we never really got those quick play the balls that Talon is so brilliant at taking advantage of and getting his players over the line, getting himself over the line with how lightning he is out of dummy half. So I don't think the game fell his way. I thought his service was quite good. He's quite sharp with his passing out in front of the ball carrier most times. He spoke a lot. I was watching him a lot and he was very vocal out there on the field. But if there was a slight, defensively, there's still some issues there. Like I said earlier, that Iongi tackle, he won't ever do that again. I'm sure that's a bakeable offence from the coach. It cost us a very low percentage play, but yeah, not one of his standout games. I think there's still a lot of football in that young fella and quite a talent still.
I think he's still Appy's heir. There's no two ways about that.
Yep.
I feel like he probably still has a little bit more growing to do in terms of his football intelligence, in terms of what he can do. I think he probably needs another full season at New South Wales Cup. We'll quickly, because we're definitely running long in the tooth in this one. We're excited to talk about
a win.
Yeah. We'll quickly talk about both hookers.
Yeah.
I think Tristan Hope, again, outshone him. I think he gave more. He offered a lot more. And I know he's a train and trialist, so he can't really come until round 10, I believe. But I would probably give that 14 to Hope over TDS at the moment. If Hope was part of the top 30, he would be my first pick to start the year, because I think TDS just has a little bit more developing to do, and I think it will do him a disservice to not get full games against men. So,
yeah, okay, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I can hear that point of view, and we're currently, I think, on 29 spots. If Clemmer goes, it's 28. If Olam gets retired successfully, it's 27. So I think that's enough spots to throw a Hope in if we need him. The only thing is that Appy's only out for a game, and then we've got a 1-2 punch with Latu there, so we've got our options.
And that's
so we might keep our powder dry with those spots and a bit to play
out there. Like a perfect world.
I do. So. Yeah, I do understand what you're saying. I'm not there with you. I'm still TDS first, but that's not to say Hope isn't tremendously impressive, and it's wonderful again to have another option down there in reserve grade.
It's great to have another headache, but it's a positive headache. And again, don't get me wrong, like I said right at the start, he's still the heir apparent. There is no two ways about that in my eyes. I just think there's too many little things he needs to improve on, and I think being that 14 for Appy for the next 2 years might do him more harm than good without playing full games. Because we know Appy tries to play full games. We both agree that this year, hopefully, he plays maybe 30, has 10 minutes on, then comes back on for the final 20, and then absolutely blitzes everyone. Let's hope that's what happens. But I think it'll do him a disservice if he's that 14 in his development anyway. Yeah, talent.
I think we're going to see Talon start to get more minutes this year, and I think then quite a few more minutes into next year. I wouldn't be surprised, depending on how Appy's form holds up, if Talon takes that starting spot either back end of this year or into the start of next year, and Appy plays as that experienced hooker off the bench into next year. But I don't know. We'll talk about that as the season wears on, mate. I've got to talk about Fanua Pole really quickly. Unbelievable. He's looking more and more a complete player every time I see him. His footwork at the line is going to destroy teams this year. Post-contact, he nearly ran for 100 post-contact metres.
Wow. That's all I'm saying.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. Incredible.
That's our front row. That's our starting front row right there.
Where do you put that front row rotation in terms of the league? I reckon it's up there.
I think it's in the top 5 at least.
We've seen a game. We've seen one trial game.
One trial game, and that was enough for me to say that.
Yeah, I like it too. Very exciting stuff. Sam Fainu, mate, a little bit of a quiet game. He did get a couple of a couple of decent short ball options and went close once or twice. He was there or thereabouts. Just not a big breakout game for Sam. But fortunately, he's an attacking weapon that's only going to continue to get better and better. And we didn't really need him to be able to capitalise on some good territory and field position.
Yeah. Again, not much I can add to that. I think he definitely hasn't gone backwards. I dare say he will only, that is just a quiet game from him. That's all that was.
Strength to strength, he'll go for sure. Mate, Seafarth?
Solid. I thought he was solid. I thought he controlled that side quite well. I thought he did more in defence than he did in attack, but didn't really go out his side. Same with Toa, because he was on Toa's side, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, didn't really go out his side that much compared to the left. So I thought he was solid, and I think there's I might eat my words here, but I think he will solidify that spot by mid-year at least. So
yeah, I mean, I think he walk up starts to start the year. I think we have to. That's where we're at. And I don't know how much he's going to offer in attack this year. I'm just hoping he tackles his face off and helps to lock down that side.
I don't think we need him to have that much attacking ability, but one thing we're always concerned of is the defense on our edges.
Correct. I agree. And I think that's the primary focus. I just think that we don't want to completely castrate one side offensively by running a lame mule in attack on an edge there where people know he's not a running threat of any capacity. I think he can be. But I think defensively, as you say, that's where the focus should be. We've got to keep ripping through, mate. Twal, I thought he was solid. I'm getting the suspicion that a heavy middle is what we're looking at this year. Simply, that may change as Bird comes into the action, but I think starting with the heavy middle, and it's a good option. I don't mind it. Melbourne have done it for a very long time, and they're not the only ones.
Yeah, that does look that way. I still think Bird should start, but we'll see how it goes.
Latu, just exciting for me, mate. I know a lot of people
haven't seen... Night and day from first trial.
Yeah, a lot of people haven't seen enough to know where the hype's coming from. I think you're starting to see a few snippets now. He is direct. He's a talker. He has beautiful service. He's got a vision for the game. He's quick. He's reactive and a great support player too. And he's already got that sixth sense with Galvin and the likes. You saw the way they nearly tore through the centre. If not for that touch from dummy half to Galvin that went behind him, and he threw one just forward into Latu, they break into the backfield with Bird there through the centre as they tore him apart as well.
Yep.
Line break, try assist for Fatape himself later in the game. Again, another headache, brilliant to have. He's got to be in the squad. He's going to play a bit of first grade this year, hopefully a lot of first grade. And I see a world, quite possibly, where we can run him simply as an attacking weapon or even a second utility on the bench, simply because he's going to bring points. He's too talented.
I agree.
Royce Hunt, your man.
I think he ran hard, ran with intent.
Yeah.
I don't think he got a lot of... He didn't go chasing the game the way that May did. Terrell May is now Mel. So I think it's probably clear that my prediction that he'd be the starting prop is now on its ass, based on what we saw from Pole and May. Still, that's a damaging prop to have on the bench. So
I think he did. Stumbling over my words. I think he did his job. quite well. You know, those big runs off the back fence were exciting to see. He's just hard to handle. And when he comes on and you get the likes of Bird coming on that we'll mention next and might parlay this into him, I keep coming back to that word intensity. Having that 1, 2, 3, whatever the punch may be off the bench. Sione came on at the same time as well. We saw that lift. And we saw big, heavy contact from Sione. We saw Jack Bird put a hit on later in the game. We saw the likes of Skelton that we mentioned earlier. Those are some examples of how you can bring it. And I thought when Royce came into the game, he raised that intensity a little bit again, which was only good for us. And Bird and the likes followed suit. Pretty impressed with Bird, mate, I've got to say.
Me too. And that's what I said prior to us signing him, and why I thought we should have signed him was I still will go back to this one game he was playing for the Dragons where he just never gave up. He was never giving up on a play. He's just the ultimate competitor. And that's what we saw.
Yeah, absolutely, which was great. And he's versatile. He can pop up anywhere. We saw him run through support that play I mentioned earlier that got called back. He ran a short ball, crash ball line for a try. Like I said, he hit hard in defence. He can defend out in centres if you need. There's versatility there. Let's hope that he touched wood. Let's hope that he stays nice and healthy for us. I think he can fill a number of roles.
Absolutely.
Mentioned Tristan Hope. Sione Fainau I thought was impressive in his short stint there. His first up contact, it's impressive. Put a big whack on himself, which was quite good. Didn't see much of Kit or Sukar, but Fa'atape, mate, chimed in not too badly at the end there. I think Fa'atape has improved. I think we said that last week, which is pleasing to see. He's still down the pecking order, but knowing that we do have a bit of depth there at centre, not speaking to the quality of it, but we're saying we do have some decent depth there at centre, and it's going to be tested to start the year. It's good to know.
Yeah, I agree. And I think he did his job without really needing to do much else.
Yeah. So. Definitely. Mate, guess what?
We're done.
We're just about done. And round 1, NRL season 2025 kicks off this week in Las Vegas. How good?
Yeah, you got your tickets, didn't you?
I did. We're in Las Vegas right now.
Yeah. It's so cold.
No, it's not. I've been there. Mate, pretty exciting. Pretty exciting that the season's here. I know we don't play until next week, but can you believe it? The season's already arrived. It's upon us. March is on the weekend. How's that happened? By
the time you hear this, 9 days to go.
9 days. 9 days, you say, for the Tigers. Mm-hmm. Very, very exciting. Anything you want to mention about that trial before we move into the PSAs, mate?
Just a lot to like. Not a lot of things to criticise. You know, there's a lot of growing to do, but a lot to like. And that was without some of our very key players.
Shapes and structures. I'm starting to like shapes and structures, particularly defense. I'm seeing improvement.
You have autism.
And thank you for that. And I am pleased to see when we plug our last remaining chess pieces into that puzzle. I don't know why you would plug a chess piece into a puzzle, but nevertheless, we're going to do it hopefully in round 1. No, mate, excited to see all the guns rolling out for us in that first game. It's going to be good fun.
It's going to be great fun. And I cannot wait. Cannot wait. Like, guys, footy's back.
Yeah, how good.
Footy's back.
Footy's back, and Gus Gould has us making the 8. There you go.
And he's, as much as he gives you the absolute shits when he's commentating either the Bulldogs or the Panthers, he's a very smart man when it comes to football.
He is, because he's also putting pressure on us nice and early. Thanks for that. He's still better than Greg Alexander.
Oh, Brandy's horrible.
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 You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Apple, Facebook, and Spotify. We always recommend and follow all West Tigers media, the West Tigers podcast, the West Tigers Life podcast, and the West Tigers Faithful podcast. They've all got something in common. See if you can pick what it is. The Ambush on Facebook, get over and follow them in the West Tigers forum. All that is good stuff. That's where you can stay apprised of everything. West Tigers, we can't do it all. All those folks there, they do great stuff. Get on board and follow all of them. They put out great content. Thanks once again to our sponsors, Best on Ground Digital, bestongrounddigital.com. They will not steer you wrong, bestongrounddigital.com. Mate, that's us for another show. There is going to be some points on the NRL ladder by next show at our season opener.
Yeah.
Not for us, but the ladder would have begun, the season would have begun. Big moment.
Big moment. 2025.
Is this the drought-breaking year?
Let's just let it go. Let's just let it go.
Is this the drought-breaking year?
Oh. Yes. I'm going to cry when we make the 8. I'm going to cry.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's this year.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy to be bawling my eyes out this year.
Ladies and gents, thanks for tuning in once as always. We always love the support from the show. It truly humbles us every single week, just two blokes having a yarn. We hope that you're looking forward to the season as much as you can probably tell we are. There's nothing else.
Wow. Yeah, we're done.
We are absolutely done for the evening, no doubt. There is nothing else to do but say, go the mighty West Tigers.
Up the Tigers.